Greetings, everyone. Welcome back. Lovely to be here looking at this very important topic, artificial intelligence. Where do we go from here? Part 2. So, we took a pretty deep dive last week, and I felt like there was some more things that wanted to come forward, and I just didn't want to take any more time last week. So it felt appropriate to extend into this week's live and also to get all of you involved in the conversation. So, good morning, Sue. Good morning, Linda, Ricky. Greetings, everyone. I really want to encourage you today to ask me more questions so that I can tune in with the cards and our collective spirit guides to access even more significant information. Today, I want to focus a lot on how do we move from where we are into some greater potential futures than this dystopian transhumanism type reality that's being sort of, I want to say, capitalized on in mainstream propaganda. And so we know that a lot of what we would call a kind of artificial intelligence has to do with even the technology of moving pictures. I think I talked about that a few weeks ago. The technology of the kind of advertising, the kind of propaganda that can come in as subliminal programming. We know a lot about this in the studies of subliminal programming in advertising, for example. Now we're looking at the majority of us spending huge amounts of time on virtual reality digital devices that are literally monitoring our algorithms and putting stuff in front of us that sort of slants our perspective in a certain direction. And obviously, we all know that there's been some extraordinary benefits that come with the technologies such as the internet. You know, I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing. You wouldn't be able to tune in. We wouldn't be able to have these very important conversations without these technologies. And yet, does it have to be a black and white thing? Do we say, oh, well, we need the technologies, so be it? Or we shouldn't have any technology. Let's go back to zero technology. I feel like what we're being asked as humanity is to be, very integral, use our phenomenal judgment and rationale, our critical thinking to allow us to vision the best case scenarios with these technologies. How do we want to, expand into using them in more intelligent ways, in more holistic ways, so that we're not just on this kind of, rickety train going down a rickety track that looks like it's just headed for an ultimate disaster at some point. Let's stop, disassemble this train, see if we can put it back together in a better way, see if we can create a track where things move a lot more slowly. We have the opportunity to do a lot of problem solving, troubleshooting, ethical discussion as we move forward. What is the rush? That's the thing that really strikes me with this whole question. What on earth is the big rush? What is the big rush? And, I find it interesting that in this last week, we've had this unfortunate, devastating disaster of the Titanic submarine that went down pretty much in the same location as the Titanic ship sunk over a century ago. And it's phenomenal to me that narrative of it's 100% safe. There's no way this ship can sink. There's no way this sub can go wrong. There's no way this technology is harmful. There's no way, name it, 5G, satellite Wi-Fi all over the planet, all these different types of artificial intelligence and replacing human body parts en masse with more and more of these technologies that are supposed to be super intelligent and advanced, and knowing and saying they're 100% safe. We know nothing can go wrong. Well, we see what happens when humanity allows themselves to think in that very, I want to say, arrogant, proud, righteous way. Like, yes, we've thrown billions of dollars of research into development of these technologies. And yet, when I say we, who are we talking about here? So there's a couple of points I want to bring up, a little bit in a storytelling way, and then we're going to look and see what our collective guides, where they want to direct us with this. So the first thing I want to bring up is, before we get into really looking at how ethical is it to go in whatever direction. I mean, I feel like we could literally debate till the cows come home. And it's funny because that's, to me, what's getting neglected is the actual reality and the ethics of enhancing the beautiful things that are already here in their perfect natural way. So we have plants that sustain us, animals that sustain us, beautiful natural environments that we have done a great job of, destroying. And to me, it's like we also have brilliant strategies around new ways of interacting with the technologies that we have to not only clean up the sort of mess that's here, but also to create synergistic systems that benefit the whole holistic aspect of our human experience, not just one small slice of high tech, let's move as fast as we can because we're on this, lightning path speedboat. What about actually going back and perfecting the technology we already have? So I think about this story. I lived up in northern British Columbia, Canada for a few years, and I had a dear friend that was part of a rural community up there, a very small rural farming community, and her ancestors had lived there for like 3 generations, been rural farmers. She is a very astute woman. Patty, shout out to you if you're tuning in. And she said to me, it's interesting to see what happened in terms of, because she watched it and her parents and grandparents talked about this with farming technology that went from, horse and plow, horse and that sort of thing, to tractors, combines, and then into these high-tech machinery with, irrigation systems, everything mechanized. And what she said was there was a really sweet spot. And I think she said it was in the early 1950s. She said there was this incredible sweet spot where you had this machinery that really actually was so helpful. And those old John Deere tractors or whatever they were, the original type, or the ones that were perfected into the 1950s. She said they would last. They're still around. People still drive them. They're still fixing them. She's like, those things were like solid and solid. So, I mean, aren't we all frustrated with this, right? Just think about what I think. Oh my gosh, my parents, my adoptive parents, who were a lot older, they were like old enough to be my grandparents. They were from a generation. I just feel them sometimes rolling over in their graves because the degree of, they valued good quality things, and the degree of quality of everything, mass production, cheaper, faster, higher tech, less built to last. And what have we done? We've actually created a monster, a tech monster. Like now, those high-tech tractors and combines you have to take them into the whatever mechanical places that do the computerized fixing, and it's like these replacement parts are literally tens of thousands of dollars for a computer part to go into a machine that is actually driving around on farmland and doing like the harvesting of crops that's been done for literally thousands of years by us humans. Like, do we really need, you know, microchip software in these machines? They worked so well. We could put in like, maybe better fuel emission technology and like make it so that the engines are more fuel efficient. That would be a great thing, but wow, really? We got to turn this into some kind of like no one can fix them. And if they're broken and we don't have the tech parts, the computer parts to replace them, that's it. There's that great big lump of metal and glass and all this stuff just sitting there. Like, whereas these other tractors are still in operation and they could be even built better and last even longer. So think about that. Think about that for a minute. If we really want to be proud as a species for the technologies that, for a whole host of reasons, have come into our hands, wouldn't it really make a lot more sense to make these technologies exquisite? Like to really, really make them all the best things that they can be. Make them to last. Make them to be, kind of intelligent in their implications of what they cost us on so many levels. So, and there's, what the saddest part of it is, we have the intelligence in all the different realms. Like, if you understand anything about permaculture, what has been brought forward from ancient technologies around how to work with regional biospheres and ecology and the intelligence of the earth and to work with the natural laws. There's so much. You could literally spend 100 years day and night educating yourself on this stuff now. There's just so much information. What a tragedy that we are racing off to Mars in these, similar to the Titanic sub. Like, what? Why? Like, I'm not saying that I'm totally against futuristic exploration and, research into the interconnectedness of the, our solar system and our universe and all of that. I'm not saying that we should just like close those doors entirely, but should we fling them wide open at the expense of what we're doing here on planet Earth right now with the technologies we've already built? And then now we're kind of like basically ruining them. We're taking these technologies that we got to a certain point with and we're going backwards. Everything's built to be obsolete. And so it's like, the phone was a pretty wow technology, but now the phone, think about it. Your great grandparents, whatever, they got their first phone, the party line, and it's like that thing is probably still there, some of them, right? Like, wires, the technology, whatever it was that put that thing together. It's like now these phones are obsolete. They don't even work after 3 or 4 years. Literally, we're going through them, millions and millions and millions and millions of these obsolete devices, obsolete technologies. Like, okay, to me, that's kind of a no-brainer. It's so obvious, it's a bit ridiculous. It's like, let's look at what we've already got and get really good at it. Like, make it amazing. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm preaching, but I really just want to start looking at the actual real physical technologies that we already have, and how do we slow right down pretty much to a halt, to a pause, and go back and rework these technologies in a super ethical, intelligent way. So I want to see, first of all, what your comments say. Yeah, right. Kubota introduced the electric farm tractor last year. In order to make farm equipment last again, the manufacturer owners will need to be replaced with people that want to build quality again. The current factory owners don't care about quality. So you're right. And this is where, how do we go back? Because it's sounding like a lot of you are kind of going, yeah, that makes sense. What do we do? How do we get them to go back? That's what I want to ask our guys, because I don't know. So let's do this. And I've already shuffled, but I'm going to shuffle a little bit more. Very curious. How do we get manufacturers to go back to the tried and true older versions of technology and really perfect them towards quality and against becoming obsolete in a few years? How do we go back? What can we do as consumers, as citizens of Earth, to kind of steer the whole collective into that focus? So here we are. Justice. Justice. Okay. Well, interesting. This feels to me like it has to do with accountability, legal accountability of some of these companies. So maybe we need to look at some kind of class action lawsuits against the building of technologies into obsolescence. Like, how do we shift this? Okay. And focusing on, well, it's interesting because what I'm hearing is the green revolution, which is a really big topic, and I will get into covering that at some point this summer. I want to bring on some people that I have in my circle of friends and connections that are both very awake and also have been long-time environmentalists, and just getting a really intelligent perspective on the two extremes. And what I'm being shown here, though, is that two can play at the green revolution game. We know that the controlling elite have taken that train and are basically using it to implement policies that are about controlling us. However, it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. See that sword of justice? Justice cuts both ways. So if they're going to play that game, if they're going to hijack that model for their own purposes, we get to jump on the ride and make our own green revolution. An alternate green revolution that is using, good luck them trying to shut us off when this is their platform. It's like, it's going to sound pretty ridiculous that when we're talking about creating technology that lasts, manufacturing machines that last because of the waste and of them becoming obsolete in a few years. I mean, that's one thing. And also because of, like this whole focus away from Earth and natural food production. So I feel like we could really dive in that lane right now and get some real momentum going. Interesting. Yeah. Things are getting stirred. We're not the only people thinking like this and feeling like this. Yeah, look at that. So the Two of Wands, see the big picture and see over the next couple of years how we can force legislation based on the exact same platform and agenda that, you know, the dark controllers are using. We can actually use that platform and shift it the other way. Wow. The big transformer. The big transformer. You know, there's something about there's going to be some accountability for basically the amount of waste that's being created by the obsolescence of these technologies, of these manufactured, basically items that are just garbage. So this is an area that we could really gain traction on. Oh yeah. Wow. It's almost like we want to do some think tanks over this next few weeks and months. And by October, we could really get some momentum going in that direction. Okay, so this is the whole, global warming. And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole right now because I have lots and lots and lots to say about this. And I don't want to get into a big, that's a very big pretzel knot. It's a knotty pretzel knot that we're not going to go to right at this moment, but it's going to play in because for sure we've got the consensus, a lot of the energy is being pulled over into this arena. So it's literally on fire right now and it's going to gain momentum. The devil over the next 15 weeks, it's going to gain momentum, even 15 months. So that's like a year and a half. Year and a half takes us into the end of 2024. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So it's basically, look at this. You notice, everybody? Not a single sword here. Now, the swords are about our thoughts. They're about, us communicating and philosophizing and strategizing and so on and so on. And it's kind of saying, in a way, let's get focused on some action. Let's get focused on some action that really brings us back into the practical earth-based reality of what we've been doing a lot, all of us, truth warriors, we've been doing a lot over the last 3 or 4 years about jumping in and exposing corruption and bringing forth truths. And we've been, a lot of it has been about mental communication, sharing of information, and strategizing to protect our rights and so on. What I'm being shown here is we're going to jump into the arena of physical action around getting involved. Even if you're not a nature person, even if you don't have a green thumb or a farming bone in your body, there's still some value in putting, I want to say literally some of your eggs in that basket. There's some value of, it's a type of, really classic resistance. A lot of times when you talk about revolution and big changes in society, it comes down to, food. It comes down to people's access to quality food and affordable food. So we are heading between the whole global warming conundrum. Again, like I said, don't want to get into that right now, but between that and supply chain, food shortages, and the price of food, like, wow, inflation in food is off the charts, and we don't see this slowing down anywhere quickly. And so it really behooves us to focus in this area, because literally it's the thing that the controllers don't want us to focus on. And we're going to say, let's focus on redistribution of technologies that are ethical according to their agenda, meaning, well, we know they're going to do the whole low carbon footprint with the electric tractors, but it feels like even that realm is going really fast. If we jump onto that and follow it to its end conclusion, which is, all the devastating environmental things that can go wrong, even in the production of those vehicles, this is where we get to literally put our foot on the pedal and give it some gas of go further than where they're trying to drag us. Go further and say, oh yeah, well, if that's true, then this, and this. And the good thing is, awake or not awake, the people that have been doing this for a long time, they know. The farmers, they know. The permaculture advocates, they know. Whether they're awake or not, they know. And there can be some really powerful coalescing. And I want to say putting pressure. I'm seeing lobbying. I'm seeing, we've got to be very aware as people who are freedom fighters to not jump into polarizing against this whole green revolution agenda, because we're going to lose some of our very, very, very valuable allies in solving problems that are part of the same issue, if that makes sense. Always looking for the areas that we all agree on. We all agree we need to eat. And we all agree that food's too expensive. And we all agree that the way agriculture is done is horrific. And we all agree, those of us that have any knowledge around this understand that there's so many better models to do this. And, in a way, of course, I confess, and I'm proud in many ways of it, that I've been an environmentalist for decades. And just like so many other things, I watched this whole thing just go sideways into a side pocket of distraction, distortion, and, basically a controlling agenda to manipulate us. And one of the biggest issues with that is the division that's been created, where if you're going to stand on this line and be a freedom fighter, then you better be against all of this other stuff. And I think we're smarter than that. We're smarter than that. If this is not an either or reality. So let's go to look at the second part of my question around how that was, first of all, how do we sort of stop this and have an effect on shifting the manufacturing of technologies back to something more quality, long-lasting, ultimately less impactful. Okay, second question how do we stop or redirect the net? Interesting. I heard the word net, like internet, but it's also like a net that we're all captured in. Like it literally is like they've got us in a net. We're captured like fish in a net. How do we break out of the net, but bring with us the technology of connectedness, of like expansion, of developing evolutionary consciousness expansion, how exponential our growth has been in the last couple of decades. You know, it's interesting because what I'm being shown, even told, is that we imagine that our shift has been because of technology, but what I'm hearing is that's maybe played a 30% role. Even if we hadn't had the technology to support us developing this interconnectedness, we still would have done it. We still would have done it. Wow. Wow. Because we are these humans. Like, in a way, what I'm being shown is that the fact that the internet came in and created the illusion that we're using this format to create interconnectedness and to exponentially grow in our consciousness. It's like a trick that we believe it's because of this, but it actually isn't. We were on the evolutionary track to do that anyway, and we would have found other ways. So we've actually been given a crutch at a bad moment, like where it's weakening us, not strengthening us. Okay. Let's look at how do we like strengthen off the crutch. Oh my gosh. So I'm seeing the funniest analogy of like, you know, somebody that is injured perhaps and rehabilitating, and then they're given a crutch and the crutch is actually making them weaker. But in their own time, out of sight of prying eyes of, you know, AI algorithm observation, they're developing strengths that make it so that they actually can throw that cane away. So it's like keeping the illusion of the cane and actually using it to help us strengthen the other parts, to help us strengthen our own natural abilities to interconnect, to go into, you know, exponential rapid consciousness evolution as a species, that we can actually discipline ourselves to train the AI, to train the net, to train the tech to do our bidding, and then remove it in a safe way so that we develop strength outside of it. There's a real sense in today's observations that I'm being shown here that we are missing the opportunity to use the momentum of what seems to be like happening to us against our will. You know, we're like, oh no, this and that and this and that. But if we use the momentum of where those agendas are directing us, it's like, you know, it's kind of like jumping onto something to hitchhike a ride part of the way, and then you get off and you do your detour, and it got you there faster and you saved some energy. That's what I'm being shown. And that's what I've always seen with so much of what is playing out with the controlling agenda, is that it's actually, when we look back long into the future, we'll say, oh, well, they thought they were railroading us, but they were actually creating routes and doing us a favor because it helped us to get where we're going. But we can't just throw up our hands and say we're helpless. And we can't just get in the trench and fight it, which will exhaust us. So it's using that trajectory, using the agenda and the momentum of where it's taking us to do our own things with that agenda. Okay, I've shuffled. I'm going to check in now and see what our guides are saying about this. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. A knight going this way, Knight of Swords, that's us right now, and a knight going the opposite direction, Knight of Pentacles, that's us in the future. Past, present, wow. Potential future. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to explain all this to you here in a minute. Woo! Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll hold the cards up one by one. This is us. We're mad. This guy's, you see how fiercely on a mission he looks? He's got his sword brandished high. He's like, okay, I got a bone to pick with everybody and everything. I'm really mad. I'm a truth warrior and I'm mad. You know, rightfully so. Rightfully so. And that's okay. One of the things this guy does, he's pretty reckless, eh? You know, there's 4 knights in the tarot, and he's the reckless one. He's the Knight of Air. The Knight of Swords represents the energy, the quality. Swords represent air and also thoughts, thinking, intelligence, ideas, communication. He's the Knight of Air. That's where we've been. That's what I was just saying. We've been in this realm of like thinking, analyzing, researching, digging up truths, and then like talking about them and getting madder and madder. Okay. So he's going this way. That's where we've been. He's actually racing off. One of the things this knight does is he's super smart. I mean, he's so important, but he does get ahead of himself and he does get carried away with his righteousness, his kind of arrogance that he knows best and he's mad at everybody else. So in the end, he often burns himself out, running around in circles, trying to get on his soapbox and tell everybody what's what. So that's where we are right now. Across from it, so one of the other 2 knights is the Knight of Pentacles, who's pretty much as opposite to this fellow as you can get. They even are going in opposite directions. They have opposite colored horses. You see how this guy's going really fast? And this guy's like barely moving. His horse is like kind of taking one little tiny step at a time. So in a way, what the guides are saying is if we want this to slow down and become more reasonable and practical and ethical and holistic, we've got to change our approach. We've got to slow down and go into these practical places and stop trying to change things with our thoughts, our beliefs, our truths, our ideas. It's like we've got to put our ideas into action, but not in that forceful, it's the difference between aggression and assertiveness. This is pretty aggressive, this fellow. Now, this character, they actually are good for each other because this character like just gets going in a direction. He's very sort of locked into, he's like the farmer. You see the furrows in the field in the distance that he's already plowed. And he is actually on a vantage point right now, but he doesn't usually come up from the plow. He's usually just like harnessed there doing his thing. Like, this is your knight that can move a mountain. He's got the hard work ethic. He's practical minded, and it's all about the proof is in the pudding. So they're pretty much opposite. And they do be lovely, right? To come and share some stuff to help each other. Right now, their backs are to each other. So I guess the first part of this message is that we're going away from creating new paradigm solutions in the real world with just going on these, you know, freedom fighting bandwagons of righteous justification and trying to win everybody to our side. This guy is like, let's do something. We'll talk about it after. And what's beautiful is that we've got in the past, aha, this is what I just said. We are already, 70%. The star is number 17, the self, and the 7 is the spiritual number. I heard that 70% of how much we've been able to expand our consciousness and grow into interconnectedness and expand the amount of information that we are taking in and have access to, 70% of that is literally just our consciousness expanding without the tech, without the internet, without the phones, without the devices. If anything, those things are actually creating a crutch that keeps us from getting stronger in our own abilities. So I'm trying to think of how this would look. Like it would look like if we were left to our own devices without those devices, we would find each other and be sharing and communicating in these phenomenal, like off the charts, off world ideas would be just flying around among people in their day-to-day conversations. I mean, I have those things happen anyway, even not on the internet, but I do also see a huge increase in that where you can have a very deep conversation with just like somebody random person out in the world, like people are ready. We are open. We are activating. It takes a lot of energy to keep us asleep. Okay, think about that. It takes a lot of programming on those devices to keep us sleeping. Even those of us that are awake, we get a lot of sleepy time programming coming through. Okay, all of you in the Northern Hemisphere, this is your homework. Of course, it's not about throwing the devices in the garbage. They have a great use. I mean, how valuable is it, that you can literally look something up in an instant and find out answers to questions and take action on them. It's amazing. And it's not where we're going to get all our ideas. It's not where we're going to get all our answers. It's not where we're going to get all of our, new earth paradigm from. We're going to actually get that from sharing and doing stuff in person, like literally working on projects together and growing food, getting outside, doing things together, sharing in a practical way. There's going to be solutions just literally popping out of the woodwork. Like that's what they're showing me. And not only solutions, but people wanting to work together. I feel like a lot of us have been still in the old, like we're still very guarded, right? I mean, that's propaganda. We've been taught to be distrustful. We've been taught to be very guarded, to not trust other humans. So often I'll see people who have resources. They might have land. They may have, finances to invest in something, but they just want to do it all by themselves. They don't want to be with other people because they say, I can't get along with people. Okay, so why don't we just test that theory this summer? Why don't we just test it? You don't have to, You don't have to build a skyscraper together or anything. Just do one little project, you know? Just do one little thing with your neighbor, with a friend. Just do one little thing and see if it feels different than it used to. That's my challenge to y'all. That's it. Check it out. Something's already happened. I'm getting the chills when I'm saying this. We have already shifted. Things are going to be different. Yeah, people will still act out sometimes. And, it's not about like we just throw ourselves out there and have no protection. But it's, it actually, what I'm hearing is the word commitment. It comes down to, I always say commitment is like it's a practice of degrees. It's not like when you commit to someone, you give them all your power. You just go, yeah, I totally trust you. Like commitment into a co-creation of something, into sharing a project, into investing together in something, any type of shared experience. You go incrementally by degrees in your commitment. You start off with a small commitment where it doesn't really matter much. If it doesn't work, you've learned something. And then you incrementally increase your degree of attachment and commitment. Those are the two words that are coming through, attachment and commitment. So, because what we're doing in a lazy sort of fashion is we're saying, I don't want anything to do with working with other people because, I don't get along with people, or people are, I've found people to be very selfish, narcissistic, on and on and on, right? So it's like finding a starting spot, someone that you would trust to do this one thing with. And you just begin to test the theory that things really are different. So, for example, even I've noticed in circles of friends that I've known for years and issues that have been long-standing in those friend circles, what I've been noticing, and even with my clients as well, is that even though people still react and things still happen that are kind of like the old patterns, they seem to be getting through it a lot faster and not getting so pulled down, discouraged, like derailed, permanently derailed. And then they're kind of like very quickly having the courage to show up again. I'm like, okay, that's interesting because that doesn't make sense. People seem to be more overwhelmed and frazzled, stressed, anxious, worried, and yet they also seem to be willing to forgive and get over stuff and like come back for more in a new way, faster. 7 of Cups, a lot of overwhelm, and yet underneath, bringing out the best in us, that best, ooh, I'm getting the chills again. That best is the number 7 again, the star, 7 of Cups. We're going to be surprised. It's not about, oh, it's a miraculous turnaround and everybody's happy now and there's no issues. Nobody's like, hurting each other or being selfish or insensitive or whatever. No, it doesn't mean that. But what it means is that things are moving faster. We're not stuck. We're not stuck in the muck the way the programming. We go back to the beginning of today, that programming has us believing that things are just getting worse and worse and worse. We're stressed, overwhelmed. People are, going through hardship. And so there's more potentially crime. There's more, like every person is becoming more and more self-centered, fearful, and so on. And so while, yes, we do have a lot more complex challenges on our plate, what I've seen, what I've observed is that we are actually maturing to a place where we can transform our outer reality. And a lot of that is thanks to all the amazing inner work that you have all been doing over the last few years. So I want to end off by acknowledging all of you and recognizing that the greater part of the technology, the intelligent technology, is in us. It is in our consciousness, and it is in how phenomenally we have grown in these last few decades, in these last few years, in these last few months, weeks, days, hours. Yeah, like it is really growing exponentially. So don't let the propaganda, the programming on all of those artificial intelligent devices convince you that we are weak, that we are dependent on these things now, that we are, in such a terrible state that we basically can't survive without these handouts and these artificial systems set up. Baloney is what I say. Oh, it's been such a delight sharing with you. Blessings to you all. Yeah. What a really great chat. And, some of these topics that I've brought to the surface today are going to be covered in the weeks ahead. And as I said, I actually am building some incredible offerings that will be doing a big 100th Soul Sampler anniversary in 2 weeks. And I'm going to be doing some giveaways and a big event to help draw people to migrate with me over to Rumble. Of course, I'll still be posting a lot of stuff on YouTube, but I'm going to start getting into some really deeper, more revealing conversations on Rumble and bringing on interviews with some phenomenal critical thinkers and strategists and new paradigm, facilitators. So I'm super excited about that. And we will be going into a lot of these topics that I've just briefly touched on, like the Green Revolution, even looking at things like crime, homelessness, our, challenges with, private ownership of land, all of these topics. We're going to be getting into some big stuff. So I look forward to sharing more with you in the weeks and months ahead around these topics. Have a beautiful week, everyone. See you next time.